Okay, next up is subtracting polynomials. And to begin this, I'm just going to do a little bit of a review of subtracting integers. So if I take 3, and I've got 3 tiles here to represent that, and I take away 2, that's easy enough to show visually. I'm going to take away 2 of these, and when I do that, you can see that we have 1 left. Alright, so that's straightforward enough. But now let's suppose we had 3 and we wanted to take away -4. The problem with the takeaway approach is that I don't have 4 negatives to take away. So I could certainly fix this by introducing 4 negatives and 4 positives, because we know that these together would be 0. And so if I now join these groupings together, this still represents my original 3. But it allows me to take away my 4 negatives. So I'm going to take those away. They're going to magically disappear. And what I have left is 7. Another way to look at this takeaway situation is that starting with 3 and taking away -4, the net effect was having my 3 and adding a +4, because you can see that's what we ended up doing in the end. And that is 7. So what I'm driving at here, and you can probably sense it, is that when we subtract, we can think of subtracting as addition of the opposite number. So instead of subtracting, we add the opposite of -4, which is +4. We could have done this with this original question, 3 take away +2. We could have done that as 3 plus the opposite of 2, -2, and that still would have gotten us an answer of 1. So what I'm suggesting here is that there's 2 ways to look at subtraction. There's the takeaway approach, where you actually physically take away something from the starting amount. But we can also think of subtraction as adding the opposite. And especially when we're dealing with negatives, thinking of subtraction as the addition of the opposite is often much more convenient. And that's what I'm going to use in my simplification of 2 polynomials which are subtracted. This polynomial take away this polynomial. So I'm going to use the approach I just mentioned, which is subtraction is addition of the opposite. And so I'm going to take my original polynomial and I'm going to add the opposite of this polynomial, which means I have to take the opposite of each term. The negative becomes positive here. This plus 4x becomes minus 4x. This -1 becomes +1. And so we've turned our subtraction question into an addition question. And then when we add, we've already talked about this, we just release each of the polynomials from its groupings, and we then collect like terms. It's degree 2. So collecting like terms, 1x squared plus 2x squared is 3x squared. 2x minus 4x is minus 2x. And my constants, 3 plus 1, is +4. And there's my difference in subtracting 2 polynomials. So that's one way to handle the subtraction of 2 polynomials. I'm going to show you a second way. So let me just rewrite the question. And what we do with this approach is we just take our first polynomial the way it is. Let's release it from our groupings. And we're going to subtract each term individually. So I'm going to subtract -2x squared. I'm going to subtract +4x. And I'm going to subtract -1. And so if I just rewrite this, the subtraction of a negative is the addition of the opposite. This is minus 4x. A negative and a positive is a negative. And then that's +1. and then we collect like terms. Whichever approach you want to use is completely fine.